prepared, please. Yeah, okay, we're just getting a few questions. If you are not a UVic undergraduate student, then I'm so sorry. I can't give you prizes or give you voting rights. This is the undergraduate student society, and so be really stickler at this one meeting that it's only for undergraduate students. So I really appreciate you all for coming. We will be posting a recording, but we can't actually give you the prizes or voting. Yeah, thank you so much for coming though. I really do appreciate it. Student democracy is good. Okay. Oh, can we try out the second prize? I think it's the zero waste kit. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm just getting a few quick messages. I'm just going to answer them because I think it could be applicable for everyone. Please sign in using your UVic email if that's possible. We're just checking like the what's it called, the SDS, the security thing on Zoom where you have to log into UVic, that thing. If you want a prize, we can just contact you. Okay, the prize winner for the zero waste kit is Aomi. Aomi, can you please connect with Steph so that, sorry, this is Aomi Jacoji. Sorry, Aomi, I don't think I've ever said your last name. I'm sorry. I email you all the time. Aomi, please connect with Steph so we can get you your zero waste kit. Other questions that are coming in, if I can read out questions or notes, I can for sure do that. It'll also probably be on the screen or in the chat. Anything else? Not seeing anything else. Okay. Okay, Steph, Aomi doesn't have audio, so we'll connect with them later. But Aomi, you won a prize. Okay. Call to order. Let's get started. It is 3:16. Kiara, if you want to note that, please. Last call, please be a UVSS undergraduate if you're at this meeting here. Yeah, okay. Just gonna put in the link one last time. If you pop in a little later, this link is also on our website. Okay. We're gonna get started with the territorial acknowledgement. Oh. Just gonna start, sorry. Oh.
Good day, my friends. I want to make sure that you understand this is not about me. This is about you, the students. We want to make sure that you're carrying yourself with good feelings. And I want to make sure that you understand that the Colombian people have signed for 50 communities in territory, Victoria area. We call them the Coast Sailors. And on the Vancouver Island, we have on the West Coast, the Newtown people, and the folks up in the north, the Quackle people. And they all operate the same way with respect to our territories or lands. There's no such a thing as gray area. You just know who their family is from. And never tell one family what to do. We all encourage you. So what I'm saying is that you understand that I'm not telling you what to do. I'm encouraging you to understand that you don't have to give up your values just to come to school or come more learning.
Oh no, folks, it looks like the audio isn't shared. I'm so sorry. Give me one sec. Let me try that again. Apologies.
I could hear that. It was just quiet.
Okay, then let's go back. Sorry.
And I wanted to say to you that Laconic territory, welcome to our territory.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is to approve the chair. So since this is a really formal meeting and we have to make sure that everyone is impartial, so that the chair is impartial and we don't have any vested interest, no one working for the UVSS could do it. So we have fantastic James on the call. James has a long history of working with the UVSS. James, do you want to give us a little intro maybe into who you are and what you do? This was the person
Sure.
that we're going to appoint.
My name is James Nicola. I was on the board of the UVSS about a decade ago and have been periodically chairing meetings ever since. I'm a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians, and so I have formal training in running meetings that require parliamentary rules and am held to a set of ethics as a result. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it back to you.
Sorry, thank you. So many screens. Okay, so we need to vote in James, right? And is that correct? Yeah, okay. So folks, Steph, how do we do this?
We just need a seconder.
Okay, great, thank you. This is my first time hosting this big of a meeting, so apologies for that. Okay, for our minutes, we need to have a seconder and someone to motion this agenda, this motion on the agenda. Basically, we're just writing a name down. It can be anyone and everyone. If you're interested in being a seconder, may you please send a message to a mover and a seconder. So we need two people. Could I get you to message Stephanie Hardman, please? They are on here. I'm just gonna wait for confirmation that we have a mover and a seconder. We do have closed captioning. I'm just seeing that there's a question on that. It should be on already. Live transcription, closed captioning. Please let me know if you're not getting that. Ian, you raised a hand. Do you want to ask a quick question before we move on? Ian, I'm not hearing you. Do you want to maybe just type in the chat? Okay, so, okay, great. Fantastic. Okay. Whew, that was just a trial run. Okay, moving forward, let's raise our hand for when we're going to be asking for movers and seconders. Thank you so much. It looks like we have appointed now James Nicola.
Sorry, I accidentally pressed the wrong button there. We need to run a poll, another mover, seconder to vote me in. So if you're okay, I'll just launch the poll.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, James.
Okay. It's going to show a test result here and stop sharing, and I should be able to resend this. Relaunch. There we go. Relaunch. So this is the way we're going to be voting, and we leave the polls up for 1 minute for accessibility reasons. So folks will have 1 minute to vote on this. Just another 20 seconds. All right. I don't think you folks can see the actual numbers. I think you see the percentages. So just so you know, there were 200 votes, 189 in favor and 11 opposed. So before we go into the adoption of the agenda, I'm going to go over a few things that you'll need to know for the meeting, and then we'll get down to the business here. So important things for you folks to know. This meeting is governed by a number of different sets of rules. At the high end of things, we have laws that we, being you folks as the Student Society, have to follow, specifically the Societies Act and the University Act. You have your Constitution and bylaws, which are available on the website. And then we have other policies adopted by the board. And lastly, the democratic rules of order. So the parliamentary rules that this meeting follows. Before we go too far, I want to just remind folks, this is a meeting, as you folks are all in the same society, you're all students, and each of you as individual members have the right to participate equally and fully in meetings, free from intimidation, filibustering, or other disturbances, which may impede people from being here and fully expressing themselves. There's expectation that folks are not using any form of personal criticism or ridicule to sway opinions. You're fully welcome to criticize ideas, but never a fellow student or member on the call. When we're here, I will be calling on people to speak. And the only time you're going to be speaking is if I've called upon you or if you're raising a point of order, which I'll go over in just a second. And I'm getting some questions in the chat, and I'll go over that in just a moment. It's really important to note, I'm going to stress it here, and hopefully I don't have to stress it again, no abuse of your fellow UVS members or staff will be tolerated. We'll give folks a warning, and then after that, we may ask people to leave, but we'll be following the process outlined in the democratic rules of order. For those of you who haven't been to a meeting before, congratulations, I'm excited you're here. If you have been to a meeting before, the flow will be very similar. I'm going to be keeping a little bit of a tighter lid on the rules, but you folks at the end of the day have full control over how this meeting goes. So what will happen is when I'm done going over this, I'll take a moment for asking questions, and then we'll go into our agenda. And the first business we'll go into is the adoption of the agenda. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then we'll open it up for debate. People can amend things if they really need to, and then we'll have a vote. That'll be the same process for the minutes when we adopt those, and for the actual motions. There are 3 motions on the agenda. If you would like to speak to anything, you're going to open the chat and you're going to send me an X. I'm going to be keeping a speakers list. The person who moved the motion gets to speak first. After that, I will go in the order that the X's come into the chat. People will get 2 speaking rights, but it'll be prioritized to the person who speaks first. I want to be cautious of saying that because there are 236 of you, and if everybody decides to speak twice, we're going to be here for a very long time. Which is another important point to recognize when I talk about how to move things along if you folks want to. So I will call upon people. When I call upon you and you're trying to speakers list, you'll have the opportunity to speak. We'll ask you to unmute. When we're done, at the very end, the person who moved has the right to speak once more. If we're at a motion and you want to make an amendment to that motion, you want to make a change, you get on the speakers list. When I call upon you, you simply say, I would like to make an amendment. I will say, what would the amendment like to be? And it's like we're moving another motion. So you'll be the mover. We'll ask for a seconder. You'll get to elaborate on what you are doing with your amendment, and then we'll debate on it, and then we'll vote on it. We will go to a vote when one of 3 things happen. One is there's nobody left on the speakers list. 2, somebody else is on the speakers list and they say, hey, I think we've had enough debate on this. I think it's time to vote. If that's happened, I will send a motion asking if we want to close debate and go to a vote. And lastly, if there's been a lot of speakers in a row who are all speaking on the same side, I might test the House to say, hey, are we willing to go to a vote now? If I think the debate is no longer really occurring. On that, if there's a number of speakers in the row who are all speaking on the same side, either pro or con, I may go down the speakers list a couple of people just to see if there are other people who want to speak on the opposite side, just so that there is a debate. Most resolutions that we're going to deal with require 50% plus one. The exception here are special resolutions, and there are 3 special resolutions on the agenda. Special resolutions require a 2/3 vote under the Societies Act. It's also important to note that there are limits on what can be done in terms of amendments to these motions. Things that, sorry, back it up. These motions require notice, which means people have to know in advance that they're coming. And so amendments that violate that idea of notice would not be in order. So a hypothetical resolution, like we're going to increase the floor space of solicitors from 800 square feet to 5,000 square feet. Right? Let's pretend we have that motion on the floor. And then somebody says, well, I want to make an amendment to make it 10,000 square feet. That would be out of order. Or if you wanted to reduce it below the current amount, that would be out of order. But if you wanted to make an amendment anywhere between where it currently is and where the amendment is, that would be in order because people have been given notice that the change is going to occur somewhere in there. Lastly, and a very important rule for you folks to know is the idea of point of order. So if at any point you think something has gone wrong, either I've messed up, I've missed something, I've broken a rule, you can't hear anything or participate well, or if there's some sort of broad tech issues which are making it impossible for folks to participate, you would unmute, say point of order. This is the only time when you can interrupt somebody else speaking. In this case, I'll also accept if people want to send me the chat point of order, and then I'll call upon you. And then the way it'll work is you'll state the point. I will rule on if it's out of order or not. If it is out of order, I'll try to fix it. Sometimes somebody might say point of order, I might disagree, or I might call something out of order and you might disagree. And you folks as the body here have the right to vote upon my ruling. So what you would do is you would say, Chair, I request a vote on this point of order. And at that point, the person who requests the vote would have a chance to speak, say their point. I would say my response to that, my reasons for why I ruled the way we did. And then we would go to a vote. And it would be a simple, are you in favor of upholding the decision of the chair? Yes or no. Some folks will send me messages in the chat. I strongly suggest that folks need to get on the speakers list. I can't manage both the list of people sending me messages and doing the chat. I will do my very best, but I can't promise anything. You know, Marielle or Stephanie Hardman might be better if you have technical issues or things that aren't related to the agenda. Otherwise, I really strongly encourage folks to get onto the speakers list so we can have you address the issue. That said, there are a couple of other points that people have said to me before I said that, so I'll go over some of these. So that folks will note that the chat is limited, and the chat is limited because you folks have limits upon how many times you get to speak. If we opened up the chat for unlimited debate, that supersedes the actual debate that's happening. And so the only way you get to speak on a motion is by actually speaking. Like I said before, I do really strongly request that folks unmute to speak. If you are unable for other reasons, you can send me a message and I'll do my very best to get to you, but I can't promise anything. If there are other changes that need to be fixed in motions coming up, you'll have the opportunity to amend those motions when you get to it. So before we begin, are there any questions? Okay, I think we're ready to go. So is there somebody currently unmuted? All right, thanks. The agenda is before you folks, so I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. You can either put up your hand using the reactions button, or you can chat to me, moved, second. So Jessica is moved. Is there a seconder? And Jonah has seconded. Another important note is if I ever mispronounce your name, please correct me. All right, so the motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion or amendments on the agenda?
I have a point of order, Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to rise
Go
to
ahead.
speak to an error that was made in the construction of the agenda. It's my belief,
Yep.
and I think it's the belief of pretty much anyone who's ever attended a meeting run by a chair, that it's their duty to uphold the rules of the society and of the rules that we are governed by. Accordingly, motion 2, specifically section 9.5C.I, is actually out of order because it would require a referendum to be run and for fees to be raised on students. I would also note that it may be overruled by this
So
meeting.
I have to cut you off there.
Mhm.
So I have to cut you off there. So motions on the agenda that have been given notice are in order. If there are specific reasons why you think they may be out of order, when we get to them, you'll have the opportunity to raise that point. Does that make sense?
No, but that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, we don't want to get into the actual either debate or rulings or anything if motions are duly moved.
I'm not debating the
Josh.
merits of the motion. It's the procedure, which is the point of order that I'm raising.
So, okay, sorry, I'll let you finish your point and then I'll make my ruling on it then.
Okay, thanks. As I was saying, 9.5 C section I actually contravenes existing bylaws because it would require a referendum to be run to raise fees, as the current policy does not provide enough money, or the current fee does not provide enough money for additional elections to be run. And so it should accordingly be ruled out of order, and in fact has to be ruled out of order. I would say that this can be overturned at this meeting, but it would still be in contravention of existing UVSS policy and should be and has to be overruled by UVSS. So that's my point.
Thank you for raising your point. I hear it, but at this point, this is just the agenda, and you may raise that point again when we get to the motion. It's not in order at this time because we're simply adopting the agenda, not getting into if each individual motion is in order or not. Each individual motion, as far as I'm aware, has been given proper notice and should be on the agenda. If the way that it works is that if a motion's been moved and seconded, once a motion's been moved and seconded, then it can be called out of order. At this point, you're just a little too quick on the draw, basically. I see a hand up from Josh. I would ask if folks, just for my own tracking of things, if you do want to chat, please put an X in the chat. But Josh, you have a hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make an amendment with motion 3, section 12.6. And then section I, there is a clerical error where it says.
So I'm going to stop you there.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, this isn't the time to amend individual motions. This is
All right.
simply about managing the order of the. Sorry, I should have been more clear about what you can do here. This is on me. You can reorder motions. You can remove motions. You can add motions. But getting into the details of the motions is not something you can do at this point. When we get to those actual motions, I'll call upon you, because I know you're going to do it, to make that motion. The point of this is because we don't want to actually get into the debate the discussion of how do we word each motion at this point. We want to do that in a narrow fashion at that motion itself. Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, I see no other requests for discussion, so I'm going to put up the chat or the vote for approving the agenda. So Are you in favor of the adoption of the agenda? And while folks are voting, I'll just explain that most of the votes we have pre-programmed into Zoom. Obviously, we can't predict every resolution that's going to come up or every motion. So there are some generic ones. We will do our best. By we, I mean, I will do my best to write in the chat what you're voting on. We're going to do our best to make it as accessible as possible. If there are things that we can do to make it better, please let us know. And, okay, so there were 194 votes with 184 in favor and 10 opposed. So now we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. We have a next screen for this one. Or is it the same screen? Hey, there we go. Okay. I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes. You can either send me say right in the chat, say move, seconded, or you can put up your hands. Sarah is moved and Evelyn is seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to put up the poll for the minutes. You'll have 1 minute for the minutes. Last 30 seconds here. Okay, so that passes with 188 voters, 183 in favor, and 5. Okay, and so now we are moving on to the first motion, moved by Holland. And are we able to move to the screen?
Hold on, James. I think.
Oh, never mind. Price time. I take it back. Sorry.
Okay, we have 2 passes to wild play. Steph, can we please run our random prize generator and see who wins this prize? Hi, folks, just waiting. Okay, Camille Tan, are you here? Please give us any signs of life. Just a little quick X in the chat and we'll connect with you. Camille, hi. Okay, great. Can you send me or Steph your email and we'll be sending you an email with info on how to get the 2 passes to wild play. Please enjoy. That sounds so fun. Okay. Before we start, we just want to make sure that we have quorum. Steph or Kiara or anyone else, may you please confirm that we are good for quorum? If oh, my bad, I'm sorry. I skipped the coffee break. Can we take just 5 minutes to go have a quick bio break, grab some coffee and come back and get started into the main notion of today's agenda. I think we need a mover and a seconder for that. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you would need a mover and seconder. So Nico's moved, Liam has seconded. I will put up the generic poll, and the proposal is for a 5-minute break. So I'm going to launch that. Are you in favor of a 5-minute break? So it'll be 30 more seconds. Okay, so that fails with the 182 voting, 82 in favor and 100 opposed. So we shall continue.
Okay, sounds good. So next on our slide is another AirPod. Sorry, one sec. I think I'm moving too quickly. Just last call, Stephanie. Do we have quorum? I think it's confirmed, but I just want to triple check. Confirmed. Great. Okay, good. Okay, let's move on. We have another prize, AirPods. Steph, may you also help me find this winner, please? Ooh, okay. Arfaz, are you here today in our meeting? Please give us a little raise your hand or unmute quickly, or just send us your email and we'll connect with you. Arfaz, if you're not here, then we can't give you the prize. Any signs of life would be great. Okay, giving it a few more seconds, and if not, we can draw another prize winner. Arvaz, no. Okay, it's been a few seconds and we haven't heard back. So Steph, may you draw another prize winner, please? Ooh, okay. Angus Morrison. Angus, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Amazing. Angus, you've won AirPods. May you please send me or Steph your email and we'll connect with you. If anyone has come in a little late, please sign up. We need this for voting and for prizes. So it's important. Okay. Please only sign in once because that creates more chaos on our end. And we're already running with a lot of things on our plate. That's okay. We'll handle it. Okay. James, I think it's back to you on main motion.
All right. So motion number 1 has been moved by Holland. So if I'll ask for a seconder, then I'll read out the motion. So Jonah, you are the seconder. And so the motion reads, and I'm not going to read through all of the whereas clauses, but I will read the actual changes. So this is changing your bylaws. So be resolved that the bylaws be amended as follows. Changes are marked in underline. And so the first change is under bylaw 1.11, professional development union shall be a group of members enrolled in a particular professional program. And then it adds in or faculty as overseen by the director of student affairs, known as a PDU. And then the next change is in bylaw 15, bylaw 15.2, and it's adding in membership in a PDU. Registration in any professional, also that's a headline, sorry. Registration in any professional degree program, and it's adding in or faculty shall constitute eligibility for membership in the appropriate PDU. And then we have a grammatical change under 15.3, and it's changing the title there. Declaration of active and non-active status of, and adding a PDU. Again, PDU will be given either active or non-active status by the Director of Student Affairs with Student Society in accordance with bylaw 15, Article 2. And then under 15.4, only the following shall be considered PDUs. And then it's adding in E, the Humanities Undergraduate Society. And then we have another portion to this motion, which are not about amending your bylaws. Be it further resolved, the Humanities Undergraduate Society shall not be considered a PDU for the purposes of the UVSS policy until a membership fee is instituted for the members of the Humanities Undergraduate Society. This is intended to guarantee a seamless transition for the humanities course unions. Be it further resolved, funds held humanities course union trust accounts shall be transferred to the Humanities Undergraduate Society to be held in trust by that party at the consent of the relevant course union. So that motion has been moved and seconded, and I will pass it over to the mover of the motion to motivate before we open up. Holland, I'll pass it over to you. If you do want to chat on the, you do want to speak to this motion, you can put an X in the chat and I'll start a speakers list. So Samuel, you can go ahead.
Thanks, James. Can everyone hear me all right? I'm at work, so I'm not sure how my Wi-Fi is right now. Awesome. Just to introduce myself, my name is Samuel Holland. I'm the founder of the UVic Discord repository. I'm a senator on the UVic Senate, and I'm a member of the Humanities Undergraduate Society. And I'm here as a representative from the Humanities Undergraduate Society. So this motion was put forward after a near unanimous endorsement early in January. However, following the meeting where we endorsed this motion, a couple of concerns came up that we feel like we really have to address. We need to take this back for more consultation. And so I will later be moving to table this motion to the next general meeting. However, I think I should give some background just so people know what they're voting to table. So I'll quickly run through that. I don't want to take too much time. So this motion is to allow a humanities professional development union, which is a faculty level organization that has the power to hold fee referenda. It also has more financial flexibility. They can have their own bank accounts, constitute their own clubs, etc. In contrast with a course union, which is a department level organization, which currently exists. Think like a department would be like music or computer science or history. So a course union's responsibility is to take concerns and problems to your department or the university from students in that department. So they advocate for students and organize events. Professional development unions do that, but as a step above, they are the official representative of the entire faculty. So a faculty would be like social science or humanities, that entire larger umbrella that departments are part of. So right now, PDUs are limited by the UVSS bylaws to just a few faculties. And this motion would allow the humanities professional development union to form. So the reason this was brought forward is that there's a lot of course unions that are really struggling this year. Some only have 1 to 3 members. Some have I was just speaking with one last night where every single one of their executive is graduating this year, so they will not exist unless they can recruit more younger members. And some departments don't even have a course union at all. This is terrible because it means that students have no resource beyond the UVSS. They have no resource in their department that will represent them to their department or to their faculty. So the idea behind this was to create such an organization for humanities. That said, we really want to make sure that we get this right. And so I will be asking to table the motion to the next general meeting of the UVSS. And I will finish within a note of encouragement. People, you should go join your course union. You should go join your professional development union. On the website, there is a page where you can find all the different course unions. They would really love your support and love your participation. And I hope to see you engaged in them.
Okay. I did see a hand go briefly from Bethel. Did you need to speak to this motion? Okay. I have nobody else on the speakers list. Oh, okay. So Samuel, do you want to move that motion? Oh, sorry, I do have somebody who wishes to speak. So Rebecca, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm president of the history undergraduate body this year. So one of the course unions that kind of operates under HUGS right now. I just wanted to underline that at the last HUGS meeting, like what Sam said, we'd voted to table the motion for the SAGM. So HUGS was in agreement that we want to look at this motion more closely before actually committing to it and creating the possibility for a humanities PDU. So the humanities course unions have agreed so far that we don't want this necessarily forward yet. We want to have more meetings, talk about it more, and once we all feel like we're good with the motion, then we would want to have it at another AGM, whether that be the next AGM or in the future once the motion is more agreed upon by the rest of the course unions.
Okay. So Samuel, you have the floor to make your motion now. Oh, sorry, Kaylin, did you?
Yeah.
One more person, you can keep it in the hand. Go ahead, Kaylin.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you to Sam because this has been a really long ongoing process and it's taken a lot of meetings and a lot of consultation and stuff. So thanks for showing up and thanks for agreeing to table it, just pending more discussion. I think we all were in favor of that. I just wanted to remind to add a little bit of context. We agreed to table it at our last HUGS meeting until HUGS has decided to present it again. So I just wanted to make sure that detail wasn't lost and that Sam gets the motion correct to reflect the wishes of HUGS.
Okay, could we go back to the motion on the screen there? Thanks. That's motion 2. Okay, so Samuel, I won't interrupt anymore, so go ahead and make your motion.
Thank you. Following the motion that we passed at the Humanities Undergraduate Society General Meeting, I will request the tabling of the motion before this motion here, the Professional Development Union motion, to be tabled. It shall come to the next UVSS General Meeting unless HUGS withdraws the motion.
So you have to choose one or the other. You can't say either you're going to postpone it to the next meeting or you're going to postpone it indefinitely. Those are your only 2 options, unfortunately. Oh, I meant to say it should come before the next UVSS general meeting. I want to table it to the next. Okay, perfect. So we've got a motion to table it to the next meeting. I'll ask for, and it has been seconded by Nicholas Fung. Samuel, I think you've already said your piece on this already, but if you are the mover, so you can speak first if you want. Otherwise, we'll go with speakers list.
Just to resolve any confusion, the reason we're moving it to the next meeting, as I believe I have mover's privilege to withdraw the motion. So if Hugs wishes to withdraw the motion, they can direct me to withdraw it at any time, but it should come before the next meeting. And that's why we voted to, the Humanities Undergraduate Society voted to direct me to request that it come to the next general meeting. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Kaylin.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the motion was super transparent. At the last Hugs meeting, what we agreed to do was table it until Hugs decided to present it again. And so I understand that Sam might have it wrong, but we did in fact agree to do an indefinite tabling.
Okay, so I can only deal with the information in front of us, so I can't contemplate what was done in a different meeting, unfortunately. So the motion in front of us at the moment is a motion to table until the fall of the next AGM, which will be in fall 2022. Are there any other speakers? Any other speakers? Okay. I'm going to launch a poll. And you have 1 minute. Are you in favor of the current proposal? And the current proposal is to table this motion until fall of 2022. I'm gonna go for another 30 seconds. And that's 1 minute. So with 193 votes, there's 162 in favor and 31 opposed. So I do want to go over a couple of things before we move forward. I neglected to say this, so I apologize. We do our best in these debates to make sure that we're only speak to me and only don't mention other folks by name if we can help it. So just keeps things as friendly as possible. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, because somebody asked in the chat, Democratic Rules of Order doesn't actually allow for amending amendments. So tabling isn't really an amendment, but it kind of is. So if somebody moves forward a motion, I guess you probably could actually amend the tabling, but you wouldn't be able to amend past that. There's some finicky things that if we run into it, I'll let you know, basically. And not voting is the same as abstaining. Okay. We're going to move on to the next motion. We have a mover on it. Is there a seconder on this motion? Oh, is it prize time or is it?
Yeah, sorry, James. We have prizes after every motion.
Well, before we go, I'm just going to note that we have Evelyn Braybook as a seconder, so we don't need to grab it next time. But then we'll do the prize stuff first. Okay, thank you. We have a second $100 one card credit. Steph, may you help me run the random generator selector to choose another prize winner? Okay, Cord, are you here? Please let us know. You have won $100 on your one card. Cord, please send us a little message, just letting us know that you're here.
Hello.
Hi, Cord. Okay, great. Glad to see you're here. Can you please send me your email and we can connect? I can let you know how to pick up that $100 credit. on the message would be great. Okay, it looks like they are here though. So let's move on to the next thing. Main motion number 2.
Okay, so the motion has been moved and seconded, so I'll read out the amendment itself, and then I'll pass it over to the mover. So as before, I'll read out the actual, so be it resolved, the bylaws be amended as follows. Under 5.16, it's striking out, you can't see it on the screen here, but it is actually a strikeout of 11 in brackets 11. It adds in 2 and in brackets 2. And I want to go to the next screen here. Is it just me that's frozen, or is it all of you?
James, I think you froze for a second.
Okay, sorry. I still have, oh, there it is. Okay. The next amendment is under 5.1E, and it's adding in the following directors elected by membership from their respective faculties. 1, Director of Business Student Relations. 2, Director of Education Student Relations. 3, Director of Engineering and Computer Science Student Relations. 4, Director of Fine Arts Student Relations. 5, Director of Human and Social Development Student Relations. 6, Director of Humanities Student Relations. 7, Director of Law Student Relations. And 8, Director of Science Student Relations. And the next screen will say, the full agenda should have the correct one here. This is missing something. So the last one in the last screen there for me. Let's go back.
There should be a 9th one that says Director of Social Sciences Student Relations.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, Director of Law, Student Relations, or Student. Okay, yep. Yeah, Director of Social Science, Student Relations. And then 5.2, it reads lead directors, at-large directors, and adds in faculty directors. And then 6.5, election of faculty directors to the board of directors. It's new. Faculty directors shall be elected by the members of the student society that are officially declared in the faculty that the director will be representing. And then 6.6E, faculty director candidates must be officially declared in the faculty they seek to represent. Under 8.9, faculty directors shall actively assist the board in performance of its duties, scrutinize the activities of the lead directors, participate in at least 2 committees of the student society, and represent the students and their faculty to the best of their abilities. And adding in 9.5C, under vacancies established on the board of directors, when a vacancy on the board of directors has been definitely established for a faculty director position, the directors may decide to hold a by-election at the discretion of the board of directors for a director at large that holds a position in lieu of a faculty director. And then be it further resolved, bylaw 1 be amended to include a definition of faculty director. Be it further resolved, bylaw 6 be renumbered accordingly. Be it further resolved, these changes come into effect starting May 1st, 2023. Okay, and we did have a point of order on this at the beginning, so I will actually just we'll go into that first, and then we'll go over to you, Abdul, if that's okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
You want me to give my reasons again?
Sure, just 1 second. I got a note that some people are having difficulties sending me an X in the chat. If you put your hand up, if you really can't put an X in the chat, put your hand up and I will call on you. But I prefer if folks put an X in the chat. It's easier for me to maintain things or keep track of things. Kaylin, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I hope this is the right time to raise the issue. I just wanted to point out that this is a pretty significant error in the construction of the agenda, and I know that best practice would probably have been to have it not ever appear on the agenda, but because we are in the meeting, all that we can do is proceed with the tools that we have. And that tool for me and for the rest of the students who want the UVSS to follow the rules that we've set out is a point of order. So I will proceed with this tool as I have. My argument is basically this. Motion 2, section 9.5I is explicitly out of order because it requires funding, which currently does not exist through the electoral office. Running more elections would require a senior electoral officer. It would require more staff. It would require potentially more funding for candidates. All of those things, which would require a referendum that's not provided by this question. I would also note that it may be overruled at this meeting, but it is the duty of the UVSS to uphold existing bylaws, which would mean that even if it was overturned here, it would have to be ruled out of order after. And I would just say that motions cannot be amended at this meeting, not main motions anyway, as the chair has outlined at the beginning of the meeting, which would mean that a withdrawal of a clause would not be in order, nor would an amendment, and therefore the whole motion must be ruled out of order. And if it isn't at this meeting, then it has to be according to UVSS bylaws at a later date.
Can you just say it again, what part of the UVSS bylaws you're referring to?
I don't have it in front of me,
section.
but it's
Okay.
it's the bylaw that requires referendums to be run when fees are to be raised or changed at all.
Okay. So thank you for raising it. My ruling is it's not a point of order. The rationale being that the UVSS budget is separate from this motion. There's no bylaw or other rule that would prevent the UVSS from using the existing funding to run the election or to use funding from other collection of member fees. So my ruling is it is not out of order.
I'd like to challenge that ruling, Chair.
Okay. A request for a vote on my decision has been made. So I will let you speak again, and then I will say my piece, and then we'll put it to a vote of the body here, and it'll be, the question will be, do you wish to uphold the decision of the chair? Yes or no? And I need note some X's. Never mind. Kaylin, you get to speak first.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that I don't really disagree with the chair's position on this too much, insofar as there's one important detail. Absolutely, the chair is wrong when it comes to using fees that have been collected for another purpose to satisfy funding requirements of another area of UVSS operations. And that is the meat and potatoes of the point of order that I'm raising. You absolutely cannot, and it would be illegal to do so, to use fees from another area to fund a deficiency in the electoral office. You would have to raise fees, and that's why this motion is out of order. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. My understanding of the UVSS is that you collect a number of dedicated fees, such as for various groups and for the elections. You also collect a large fee that runs the general operations of the student society, and that fee can be used to anything that the board puts. There's no restriction under the bylaws or anywhere else that would prevent the board from putting those fees towards an election. Similarly, the board could choose to give money from the general fee to any other organization that may collect a fee. There's no limitation from the board to do that. I understand the concern. If it were true, like, I don't think that there's any way that this motion violates the rules. You know, yeah. So I'll leave it there, and I'll let folks decide from here. I did see an excellent chat. We're not going to allow debate on this point. So I'll put forward a poll. And the poll will read, are you in favor of the chair's decision? So if you're in favor, you'll be with my ruling that it's not out of order and the debate will continue. If you are not in favor, if you're opposed, you will vote opposed, and that means the debate and this motion will stop. So everybody clear on how this vote's going to work? Okay. So you have 1 minute. I'm sorry that the vote's already happening. I see a hand up, but I can't stop a vote to ask a question on things.
Oh, could you explain the choices again?
Yeah, fair. I've ruled this motion is in order. If you agree the motion is in order, then you will vote in favor. If you don't agree with that ruling and you think the motion is out of order, you will vote opposed. So if you want to continue, basically in favor means the motion continues, opposed means the motion stops.
Thank you.
Another 10 seconds. Okay. So there were 208 votes, 181 in favor and 27 opposed. So the motion will continue. I don't think that I did. Yeah, I'm just going to continue. I know there's a couple of folks who sent me stuff in the chat, but we're going to continue. And Abdul, it's over to you.
Before I begin motivating, I did have a question. If that's okay?
You can give it a shot.
It was just somebody reached out yesterday to say that the first be it further resolved that clause is out of order. I wanted to just get your opinion on it.
So yes. So the first be it resolved bylaw 1 says be amended to include a definition of faculty director. So the issue here is that bylaw amendments are finicky and they have to be very, very precise. That wording allows somebody who's not in this meeting to create it. And so as it stands, it would technically be out of order.
Would removing that specific line be okay then?
I would suggest that would be probably what you'd want to do, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to use my mover's privilege to have that line withdrawn. The bylaw 1 be amended to include definition of faculty director.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
I believe mover's privilege is automatic.
Oh, you're gonna make me look up the rules again.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. 1 second, folks. Movers privilege requires unanimous consent in a meeting of this size.
Okay, awesome.
So does anybody object to the removal of be it further resolved bylaw 1 be amended to include a definition of faculty director? Okay, so there has been an objection. So to remove it, you'd have to amend the motion.
Then I'll amend the motion.
Okay, is there, and I have, I believe, a second from Nicholas Fung. Okay, Abdul, you get to speak first.
Okay, yeah, this just means the motion stays in order. I'm not here to like ruin the board's things. I just want to make sure this passes and is all above board and all works according to the law and to our policy, just to make sure everything goes by the rules, because I want to work within the framework that we have here. Other than that, I think the motion is great, and I think I'll get back to motivating to that when we're out of talking about the amendment.
Okay, so I've started a new speakers list. People who put up the X before we move to the amendment. I'll get to you folks in a moment. But Hannah, you're next on the speakers list. Hannah Brown.
Hi, mine's more of a question than anything. Would there not being a definition of faculty director cause an issue if this motion were to be resolved without that role being defined in the bylaws?
I mean, there are no definitions for anybody else on the board except for directors specifically. So I can say about that much about it. The motion would technically still would be in order if it was removed. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to the amendment? Seeing nobody else, I will go to a vote. Just give me a second to, okay, 1 minute to vote. So this vote is to remove the part that reads, be it further resolved, bylaw 1 be amended to include a definition of faculty director. And just removing that one line. Sorry, let's give it a couple more seconds because it took me a moment to type there. I even put a typo in there. Took all that time. Okay, so end the poll. So there were 190 people who voted, 174 voted in favor, and 16 voted opposed. So that amendment carries and that part is removed. And we will go back to the main motion. And so, and I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, please do correct me. Anif? Anif?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to, oh, sorry if it's a bit loud here. I just want to confirm that the motion did pass at the director's board meeting. It was put on the agenda at the board meeting and it approved then. And I want to say if there was any issue with the motion, it should have been brought up then. And one of the board directors should have brought it up, one of the lead directors. But if the motion is considered serious enough to not be passed on, to not be put forth later on, I feel that since the board was not able to do their proper due diligence, they should step down afterwards.
Okay. Going to go to Abdul.
Okay, so this is my chance to motivate the motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, and if
Sure.
anybody else wants to speak, send me an X and I'll call on you.
Everything kind of froze for a sec. Can everyone hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so hi, my name is Abdul. I use he, him pronouns, and I think this is a big change. So I kind of want to first speak to my own credentials a bit. Changing bylaws is always a big thing, and I wanted to talk about why I am someone who is putting this forward and what my own policy writing experience is. So I have been a previous UVSS Board of Director, was the second chair of the Policy Development Committee, also worked on a lot of the more policy side of things with a lot of policy as well. I am a current council member for the Engineering Student Society. I have also written policy for organizations that range from like student advocacy organizations on the local level all the way to national levels. I've written a lot of policy in my life, and I feel like I'm someone who has a lot of experience in student leadership and student governance and has the experience to write stuff like this. Moving on after that, I kind of wanted to explain the reasoning behind this motion and what should be expected from this motion. This motion looks to change a small subsection of the, or a bit of the board of directors makeup to include positions specifically created for faculties to allow for representation across all the university experiences on campus to kind of have a voice in the UVSS. So the current makeup is 5 lead directors who work on kind of the executive decisions, a director of international student relations, 5 advocacy representatives from organizations like Pride and Society for Students with a Disability, and 11 directors at large. Those 11 directors of large positions are the things we're going to be focusing on today. They are basically positions that are meant to support the lead directors, kind of hold them accountable, and kind of do things that are a bit more tangential to what the to what the UVSS does than the day-to-day that the leads usually focus on. I, as someone who has previously been a DAL, have seen a lot of deficiencies with that position where you kind of don't get any support from the very busy leads, and you're kind of left to be basically an unpaid intern to the leads instead of trying to bring something to the table. And when you're someone who isn't sitting in on the day-to-day meetings and you don't get a lot of the updates from the managers and stuff like that, you are going in without having a prime directive to focus on. So I wanted to change that, and I want to change the makeup of the UVSS board of directors a bit to let the UVSS serve more students and accurately represent the needs and wants of the students. And that is going to happen by taking 9 out of those 11 director at large positions and having them be faculty specific. Students will be voted in from those faculties and will only have students from those faculties vote for them. So if I wanted to be the board director for the engineering and computer science faculty, only engineering and computer science students would be voting for me. This kind of solves a few problems. Engagement with UVSS elections over the past few years has been rapidly dropping, and this would hope to alleviate that by having students having less to focus on in these elections. Instead of having students voting for 18 positions, I believe, students will only have to be voting for 9, which lets you kind of focus more on 9 positions and kind of look more granularly at who you're voting for instead of trying to pick 18 names out of a hat to see what sticks. It also lets students, like communities on campus that are kind of less served by elections because they're usually smaller voting blocks, be reached out to by people specifically looking to get elected by those smaller groups. It also is just going to bring a diversity of opinions and perspectives into the board of directors. My experience as a student here on campus is heavily, sorry, my mind blanked for a second, is heavily influenced by what I'm studying, who I'm talking to, what I'm seeing, and the professors and admins that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it is disingenuous to say that my academic success here on campus is not affected by the courses that I'm studying and the courses that I'm taking. Students are definitely more than their courses, but courses do make up a big part of what makes my experience at UVic. And so this just hopes to broaden the perspectives that the UVSS Board of Directors has, solve some of the longstanding issues with lack of representation that have been felt in smaller faculties, from the UVSS and kind of work to make getting engaged with the UVSS easier by allowing people who don't necessarily have the support of big organizations behind them get elected and bring new things to the table. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see some good discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay, Nigel, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So hi everyone. My name's Nigel, and I'm currently a director at large on the UVSS board. Today, I want to speak and raise some concerns about this motion and the impact that it has on the UVSS board. And just so you know, first of all, the UVSS board is opposed to this motion. So the stated rationale for this motion is that it is trying to increase the representation of engineering students and business students and science students who historically haven't had as many seats on the board. And there's a few factors that I just want to highlight to bring to people's attention as reasons why this motion isn't the greatest idea. First of all, the UVic Senate currently uses a very similar system to elect students to the Senate. So those elections occurred about 2 weeks ago now, and only 9 out of the 16 positions were filled. So what I just want to point out here is there's this type of structure, there appears to be a higher risk for seats remaining empty. And I think what that does in effect is it potentially will compound some of the existing problems on the UVSS board relating to the capacity and the workload of members on the board. And particularly the lead directors who already have quite a significant workload. Also, this motion would in effect reduce the pool of students who are eligible for each seat. So with that, it also reduces the power of each student's vote because you're only voting within one faculty. And there's some ambiguity here that this motion hasn't thought through, because what do you do in instances where, say, a faculty director decides to switch faculties partway through the year? Or what about instances where a faculty or a student has a double major and a major's like one major is in one faculty and one major is in another? It's not really clear which position you would be voting for. And that's another issue. Also, the different faculties at the university are different sizes. For example, the Faculty of Law only has about 500 students, whereas the Faculty of Science has, I think, around 2,500. So basically that means that the law faculty director is representing a significant amount more students compared to the Faculty of Science director would. I also want to emphasize that under the current system, students from all faculties are already able to run for seats on the board. So in my view, I think the reason why social science students have been more likely to be members of the board is because I think those are the people who are generally more attracted to doing this type of work. And as a side note, all of the directors at large were acclaimed in the last election, and only actually 10 out of the 11 DAO positions were filled. So basically, if an engineering or a science student had run to become a director at large, they would have been acclaimed to the seat. So I feel like in many ways, this motion is trying to solve a problem, but there's ways to solve it that don't involve changing the structure in potentially quite complicated ways that haven't fully been thought through. And lastly, as students, we're not just defined by our faculties. Like our experiences, it's not just because I'm in social science that that's not my entire identity, right? And I think kind of reducing us to just the faculty we're in is somewhat sort of reductive. But anyways, it's for those reasons that I think you should vote against the motion today. Thank you.
Okay, Rowan is next on the list.
Thank you, James. Super excited to be here speaking to you all today for our SAGM on this particular motion. I am a director at large with the UVSS, and I have a few things to say about this particular motion. As Nigel stated so well just previous to me, or just before me here, prior to me, I should say, you know, the UVSS does not support this motion, and we would ask that you vote no. I think one of the biggest issues that I see with this particular motion is that there's a lot of uncharted territory when it comes to what the consequence of these particular changes will be. You know, it's hard to say what exactly will be what will happen if this moves forward. You could say that, for example, you could say that this will fix some of the issues as Abdul has laid out, and I think he raises some legitimate concerns when it comes to the structure of the board. But can we be sure that that this will fix the problems we're looking for? Will it not create more problems instead? And that's not to mention that transition of this kind will cost the student members a significant amount of money, in the tens of thousands of dollars, as estimated by board representatives who have worked within these types of situations beforehand. You know, for me, like, I mean, from the heart, I'd say, like, I'm a big supporter of a diversity of opinions. And to be fair, like, that is slightly lacking on the board, and that was something that I had some contentions with going in. I'm a poli-sci student myself, and I know what that means to so many of you, but you know, I wish that there were students from all faculties running for board positions. That's unfortunately not been true, but that doesn't mean that that it can't be that way. We have an election upcoming, as Hillary told us all about at the beginning of this meeting, and it gives all of you here and anyone you tell, your friends, your colleagues, your fellow students who want to run for these positions in whatever faculty, they can do so, and they will be elected by the entire student body, not by particular members of the faculty. And for that fact, I think that, well, Abdul lays out a great point about, you know, perhaps it being, making it a bit simpler system for the voters. I do think that that's a bit of an infantilization of our students. 18 people is not all that hard to figure out. So for all these reasons, I ask that you vote no, and I also ask that if you're interested in moving forward and pushing the board to higher places, that you run in the upcoming election. We're currently in the process of going about a governance review that will help to make sure that the board runs more effectively in the future, and we want you to be a part of that. So again, I'd say vote no on this motion. Trust what the board has done for the last 50 years with UVSS, and put your name out there. You're going to have up to, I mean, I'm not going to try to guess on the numbers here. All undergraduate students are going to be able to vote on you in the upcoming election. They'll be able to vote on 18 people, not that hard to figure out, and you'll be able to follow all their Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts, whatever you might find in the process going up to the election. So that's all I got to say today, James. Thanks for giving me the time to speak. Thank you to all of you, and yeah, please vote no.
Okay, I have Samuel and Alexandra and Charles, and I've got a bunch of other folks. So Samuel, you're up.
Thanks, James. I just wanted to respond to two things. One, the idea that 18 directors isn't a lot to keep track of. I think that's incredibly disrespectful of people's times. We have, you know, as students, we have very little time to, many of us have very little time to contribute and think about student politics. And the idea that 18 people, like not just 18 people, but 18 positions, so you have competitive elections for all of those positions, isn't a lot to keep track of. I find that ridiculous. you have to spend a lot of time thinking about each one if you're going to take an election seriously. The second thing I'd like to respond to is, as a senator, I wanted to address the comment on how Senate elections work. So it was claimed that 9 of the 16 positions were filled, and then that's what the UVSS would turn into effectively. That's not how the Senate works. Usually we have 3 nomination periods, so there are 3 opportunities for every seat to be filled on the Senate. And in fact, usually in the second, we get a lot more interest because people think that the Senate is really competitive in the first one, so people don't apply. And then in the second one, the second call, people realize that it's not competitive and jump in. So the Senate does not work in any way like how the UVSS works, where you have a single election and everyone knows that there's a single election. So I just wanted to make that statement that drawing a comparison to the current state of the Senate is ridiculous.
Okay, Alexandra.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, perfect, thanks. So I'll try and be quick, but I just wanted to voice my support for this motion. I completely agree with, Abdul, in that your experience at university is so greatly influenced by which faculty you are in. And at the moment, it's just really upsetting as an engineering student to see so little representation for myself within the UVSS and the things that might be important to me. So I agree that I think that this will kind of solve a lot of the issues in terms of representations from each of the faculties. And it was mentioned that, okay, yeah, faculties are different sizes, but I think it's important that we have people on the board from those small faculties that maybe wouldn't be represented otherwise. So, I would beg people to consider what it means to have diversity, and part of that is your experiences as well as your experiences at university. I know your experience prior to university influences it as well, and obviously we have other positions and additional board of director positions to make sure that we have that kind of diversity as well. But at the moment, the diversity within your specific experience right now at UVic is extremely lacking. And I agree that I think this will improve our the participation of people from those faculties, because knowing that the UVSS is doing things to make sure that people who don't normally participate in the elections, I think that'll improve public opinion of the UVSS, knowing that they care about everybody and not just the few people that happen to, run for positions every semester. I think this motion is a really good step in the right direction, and I would beg everybody here, including the UVSS, to reconsider their opinions on it. So that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Okay, Charles.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I would also like to speak in favor of this motion. I was at a meeting of the Humanities Undergraduate Society, HUGS, where we endorsed this motion. And I think it's kind of interesting that the board is voicing their opposition to a motion that would change the structure of the board. I think that is perhaps a little telling, but also this has the potential to really improve engagement from other faculties. I know for myself as a humanities student, a lot of my peers in the faculty just don't have the time to research over 18 candidates, up to 18 candidates. And so as a result, just don't bother with UVSS elections and don't bother to participate in the UVSS. And I think that that is a real shame. And that if there were a faculty director position that they could run for, campaign for, and vote on, that would really encourage a lot of people who have other commitments, such as working full-time or close to full-time while in school, to be more to be more active in student organizing. And yeah, I think it's a gross mischaracterization of this motion to say that it reduces students to our courses, because which faculty you are in, as I think Alexandra and Samuel mentioned, does greatly influence your experience on campus. I have friends in engineering and in sciences and in social sciences, and we interact, but our experiences at UVic and our interests in student organizing do have their moments of difference. And I think that currently the UVSS board doesn't represent those differences. And I'd also just like to point out that this motion doesn't remove all of the director at large positions. So it's not as though we wouldn't still have the chance to elect broader representatives from the student body at large. And so I would really suggest that people vote yes to this motion.
Okay. I did receive a request to read out a statement. So this is from Folakimi, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I want to first note that I'm speaking as an individual who intersects multiple minorities and oppressed groups, including but not limited to race, gender identity, and ability. I've heard the excuse of currently anyone can run for a seat, used multiple times to mask an organization's aversion to giving certain groups appropriate representation and systemic pressures. I see the UVSS's statement that we are more than just your courses as being akin to say we're more than just our race. When it comes to discussing representation, students in different faculties have different experiences, and those experiences greatly influence the way our lives are currently structured. To close out, I would like to note that I strongly support this motion, as I believe in the UVSS is in need of this change. Okay. Next up is Sam Morrow.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Hi,
Yeah, we can hear
so
you.
I would just like to give out a couple couple rebuttals based on what has been said by a couple of DAOs earlier. Now, one of the main contentions that they brought up was that not as many people would run, citing the Senate as an example of how people wouldn't be running based on faculty representation. But this argument really just isn't correct on two accounts. The first thing it does is it compares apples to oranges, and the second is that it just draws a false causation between these two phenomena. Now, the Senate is not the UVSS. I think that's pretty clear. The UVSS and their elections have historically gotten far more attention than any Senate elections, and they're very clearly at the front of all of university news, and they have been for quite a while now, especially due to this motion and the response and debate that's come from it. So conflating this to be a function of the faculty representation rather than the attention that this is given to the elections is really just misleading and incorrect. And in fact, I would even argue that there would be increased engagement due to this resolution. Now, big changes to the UVSS have, or at least the possibility of big changes to the UVSS and their structure has already increased interest in the UVSS by quite a lot. I mean, just look at the attendance of this in the last AGM or SAGM. I think that it's pretty clear that the UVSS and their elections are getting way more engagement than they have in a long time, just solely based on the idea of structural change. So imagine if we actually implement it and people actually get this idea and they actually get hope for possibly being represented by the UVSS, because I think it's pretty clear that many people don't really feel like they're represented by it. So if we can actually get this to pass and students have this perception that the UVSS does actually indeed represent them, that they have somebody that will represent them specifically in their faculty, only a couple thousand of students, maybe only a couple hundred in the case of the Faculty of Law, rather than one DAO who's volunteered getting barely paid anything, who's has to represent every single student, all 19,000 undergrads. I think that'll give a pretty damn big difference in how people perceive the UVSS and how the UVSS can effectively represent their students. Overall, it's really just kind of like a weak argument, and it's misleading as the nature of this referendum and the nature of student engagement. And the second thing I'd like to address was that it was mentioned that this resolution would result in your vote being worth less. Now, I kind of already touched on this before, but really, the current system does not have effective representation of a lot of students. When you have 9 DAOs, each of them responsible for representing like 19,000 students each. It's really hard to actually do that representation. It's incredibly difficult you're really spreading thin what you're supposed to do. Whereas if you have a couple of faculty directors where it is very clear what their purpose is, their purpose is to represent, say, the 500 or so students in the Faculty of Law, the 6,000 or so students in the Faculty of Social Sciences. If we can allow that to happen, then they will be far more effective at A, knowing what they need to do to represent their faculty, and B, actually getting that change to be done because they have this very clear movement from behind their students. And they can actually get more support from their students, and they can get more engagement more easily because it's more divided up. And overall, it really wouldn't result in your vote being worth less. Instead of having instead of having 9 people for 19,000 students, you'd have a more effective distribution of what people are representing. It's like having constituencies in an election. You're not just having a bunch of people that are elected to represent the whole monolith. You have specific people for specific areas. And really, that's why elections have these constituencies in pretty much every single successful democracy, because it's an effective way of doing it. And that's what the UVSS really needs to do to be an effective representative board, which is really overall just a couple of reasons why this motion absolutely does need to pass. Thank you.
Okay, next on the list is Jonah, and then I have Sarah, and then Helen. So Jonah, you're up.
Hi, everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So just to build on everything else that's been said so far, I just have a few things to say. Yes, I am very much in favor of this motion. That being because, as numerous people have said now, it does almost mandate an increase in attention to the UVSS from all different faculties. It will encourage more students from whatever they're doing at UVic to be involved with the society. I'd like to as well address some things that have been said so far. One was said that the UVSS, there are other ways to solve this problem than reforming to represent societies. And yet I ask, given this problem has been of just not enough attention on the UVSS to meet quorum regularly, has been going on since the mid-1990s. I have a statement here from a director at large from 1995 that basically foreshadows the issues we're having now. I won't read it because of time, but I can if asked to do so. And not only that, I have letters from, this one's from the Western Engineering Student Societies team, that states that 9 of the 11 universities in Western Canada use a university student society format that is based on representation by faculties. So this system does work. It's worked in a lot of other places very successfully. And I think the UVSS needs to just catch up with what actually works. Instead of just keeping on saying, oh, well, we can solve this some other way, or we'll solve this with the current system, and yet not do so. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, you're up.
Yeah, so people have really already kind of said most of what I wanted to say, but I did want to bring up that a lot of the arguments from the TALs, or sorry, against this motion, a lot of them have been based on sort of wild speculation. There's comments about this could cost a lot of money, we don't know what to expect. But I think that the bigger picture here is that we know what to expect with staying the way that we are now. I think that this offers a new opportunity to sort of tread new waters and actually have a voice in faculties that don't normally have representation the way things are currently structured.
Helen, you're up.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, because the UVSS member brought up that, that there was a different way to do this. And I was just curious, like, what are these different ways and what's being done about this problem, which they've acknowledged is a problem, right? Like, why is it only Abdul's motion that's been brought up today? Why is there no motion by the UVSS?
So are you looking for that to be answered here?
Preferably, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Marielle, see if they want to add anything to that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for that question. So we didn't prepare a motion because we've actually been doing, we sent out a call for proposals for like more experienced consultation to be able to build up a solution that would be effective and follows, all legal procedures. And so this motion that we're talking about today, motion number 2 about faculty representation, is something that came up at the last AGM, and we've been working on the other side of it, and we're we just don't have a prepped ready motion to go. We're taking a much more methodical and consultative process. We are also looking at all of our data from an equity audit that we did and implementing that into this call for proposals. I'm just going to ask quickly for permission, but I can see if we can share that call for proposals. It's just a lengthier process, and it means that it's not an automatic change like this one would be for, well, it would be, I think, for 2023. And this one would be starting from scratch and looking, with an expert or with a hired expert to figure out what is the best way that we can ensure ongoing and sustained involvement with student leaders. I think that's everything.
I think that probably answers the question. Ayla Simpson, sorry, I got that wrong.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to assume you can hear me then. Hello, I'm speaking to you today from the Rocket Room here in the Engineering Lab Wing. And even though we've heard a whole bunch of engineering students talk about this so far, I'm going to still put my 2 cents in. So, being an engineering student, I know about a lot of things that the ESS does for us. I know when the ESS is doing events, the events they're running, and I know that there are a bunch of engineering students who are thinking the same way that I am. When I think about the UVSS, I think about a handful of students who are trying to run things for an entire university. I do not envy the position, but you can't understand the sorts of things that different faculties are going to want, specifically students from social sciences and humanities and engineering, and they're just too different. The sorts of things that we want, that we need, are not the same. So when it comes time for the UVSS elections, I vote in the elections, but I don't really care very much because I know that no one there is from the engineering department. And I think having a dedicated place for each faculty to have their representation will be much better than having a smaller number of students who generally are from the same 2 or 3 faculties, if not programs, as you'll end up with a much better representation of the student body that you're trying to make decisions for, because the decisions you're making are for everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Dip?
Hi, James. Sorry, was that me?
Sorry, yes, I was speaking quietly. Go ahead.
Yep. Hi. So right now I am a lead on the UVSS board. I do share the sentiment that this motion may not be the best way for a few different reasons. So my faculty is in sciences. I'm doing my undergrad in physics and astronomy right now. Being in one of the 3 so-called tri-faculty, which represents probably a majority of students, I do not identify with my faculty as much as I identify with my department. Moreover, having a department allocation versus a faculty allocation for faculty as large as the sciences do not make sense, simply for the fact that the different representations of law and sciences, let's say, make wildly different representation and perspectives that you would get on the UVSS board. I do acknowledge that the system right now is nowhere near adequate. And the system right now has excluded people in the past. That was changed last year when the slate system was removed. First the slate system was removed and then the cooperative system was removed. So that, at least according to me and my data or research, was the main factor why very few people from different faculties were being elected. Right now on the board with the new system, with the slates and cooperatives removed, we have seen so much diversity. We even have someone from the Faculty of Engineering representing them on the board. Secondly, this change is going to be very, very expensive. And I mean, just starting with $50,000 or so, that is going to eat up on our budget moving ahead, and potentially have consequences that we don't foresee. For example, the university secretary's office has said that they're not sure that they can implement it, meaning that we don't know if this system can even be supported. For example, to get into this meeting and to be verified as a student, we needed to have a record for, according to Societies Act, that you all are members. We didn't get that list or are even able to download that information from beforehand. So UVic, because of UVic privacy laws. So getting that system to run an entire election where we would need to store that information is something that cannot be even considered right now. Having said that, I did hear someone say that what is our proposal? As Marielle had mentioned before, governance reviews are being proposed right now by the UVSS and will be planned for a long-term proposal to change the makeup of the board itself. If then the faculty director positions come up as a natural fit, I would back that. But having a data-backed or data-driven approach to me is more important than creating assumptions and postulates. Further, I do want to mention that there was another proposal that was proposed by me last year, where instead of having faculty representation, because as I said, enlarged faculty really does not make sense, we should instead have course unions or like course unions and PDUs forming a second council in a bicameral system, very similar to actually a lot of other universities, so that both sides can be properly represented. And that to me makes more sense because it really works to represent you in whichever faculty or department you are in, no matter how large or small they are. So because of all these three, I will be voting no, as well as urging everyone to vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay, I still have 9 people on the list, so I'll let it go for a couple more, and then I may test the House to see if we want to go to the vote. A couple people have asked me how we go to a vote. Again, there are 3 ways. One is a run out of people on the speakers list. Second is, as long as there's still debate, I'll let things keep going. And third is if somebody's on the speakers list and says, hey, I think it's time for a vote, then I'll test the House. Shelby, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had kind of a general question. Some people who've already spoken have said that this change would cost like quite extraordinary amount of money from the budget. And I just want to know exactly what those extra expenses would be that would come from this motion.
Dip, you raised that specific issue. Do you think you're able to answer that?
Yes. So firstly, to begin with, we would need a secure system or service to store data that is accepted and ratified by UVic. That itself is going to be extremely expensive. Secondly, we would need to go through all parts of the Board of Directors policy and bylaw to find if there are any conflicts arising from that. Those documents are really long, meaning a lot of hours and fees or like salaries goes towards someone actually reading them. Thirdly, this system does require a lot more by elections. So running a by-election again and again, at least let's say 3 times if we do it similar to that of UVic Senate, then that is incurring additional cost. It takes a lot of money to run 1 election cycle, let alone 3. So all these are contributing factors. The implementation as well as continued implementation of this will be really expensive. Now, when I ran for board, I made a promise that I will not be increasing fees, but this does look like it will need some kind of increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Aislinn, ASLINN. I'm so sorry. You there? Okay. Marielle?
Thanks. I just wanted to answer just a few questions that I'm still kind of hearing. Basically, if we fail this motion, it wouldn't mean that there would be no change at all happening to the UVSS governance. I think it's pretty clear that we're all on board for changing things up a little bit, and we'd just really like to make sure that whatever change is implemented is thorough and effective. And so the way that we're doing that is, asking for an environmental scan of governance structures, asking to prioritize equity in whatever structure that we put forth, and making sure that that structure has financial stability. For example, we want to make sure that we know exactly what the dollar sign are for any proposed changes and how we can secure long-term financial security. So for example, we'd really like to incorporate steady financial growth over the long term, rather than just solely, like right now, we mostly rely on the student membership fee. And that's not always fair. We also want to make sure that whatever review we do really prioritizes student well-being. So internally, right, I think one of the problems, or one of the issues that I'm not seeing the motion that we're discussing today really try to address is an ongoing pattern of burnout. We lost, or I lost 3 coworkers early this January, and every year before has seen at least one director step back from duties, mainly due to the high amount of workload that we have, but also I think in advocacy, there's a really large emotional component, and it can be taxing. Having said that, we want to make sure that whatever structure we ask for or create with a consulting company is one that really considers all students' well-being. So not just lead directors, but also directors at large and our advocacy group representatives. So yeah, and then also the external facing portion of it would be to make sure that whatever the UVSS looks like in the future really enhances the student experience and builds up like a meaningful, safe, just community that embodies values. I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure that the faculty representation would necessarily be the best answer for that, simply because it effectually creates more barriers to entry in order to be able to run. For example, if you're double major, how do you choose which faculty you're going to be representing? If you switch in, what about if you decide to change your major throughout your board term? Would that impact your standing in the board if we were to do faculty directorship? Yeah, so just something to throw out there. We also want to make sure that the implementation plan is really clear. So whether it's for faculty directorship or for the call for proposals that the UVSS has internally set out, we want to make sure that we have a good time frame. And so the scope that we're asking for is for it to be really driven by qualitative and quantitative research methods. Ideally, we'd like to see an alternative project begin May 9th, like for the research portion of it, and then have like an answer, if that makes sense, of potential governance structures to choose from by December 23rd, 2022. And we'll likely have a presentation of that early in 2023. Just a quick reminder that I think Sam also mentioned that Senate has a hard time filling up those seats. And so, yeah, I see what this motion is trying to do, and I'm just not quite convinced that it'll actually achieve it. And so I think that's my only hesitation. Thanks, James.
Hey, Colin.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So just to a point from a director at large earlier, to be clear, the UVSS is willing to hire an expert, but not willing to listen to the students they claim to represent. The UVSS would fight this movement, but hire someone with our money to come up with a better alternative than what they have in front of them. Do they have any ballpark direction? In the meantime, the current DALs just conveniently get to continue their term and call all the shots. I think the sentiment alone is enough to show that the UVSS is willing to listen to anyone other than a lot of the students who actually fund them that they claim to represent.
So I do need to interject here. You do need to keep the language positive, and you must respect everybody here in this room, even those who you may disagree with. So I'd ask that you try to reframe your wording. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, James. So one of the things that's been bothering me this meeting is we've heard a lot of fuss about fees. And I don't imagine a consultant, as a consultant myself in another area, I don't imagine a consultant is going to be able to propose a solution that is entirely free. So I think at the end of the day, we are still going to have a bill for changing things. And just on top of that, we're going to have a consultancy bill. So I'm just not fully understanding where that's coming from. We've also heard some concerning discussion about being sort of unable. I may have misinterpreted this earlier, so maybe we can revisit it. But we heard some discussion about the UVSS like not being reformable in this way or something like that, that it wouldn't comply with something to do with UVic. That's concerning to me because I like to think of our elected body as one that could change, you know, as a democratically elected body. So maybe we could revisit that. Did I touch on everything? Yeah, I'll be voting for the motion because I think we have before us something concrete that increases representation and diversity in the UVSS. And I think we all agree that that is important. So.
Thank you. Jacob.
Hi there. My mic working?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Jacob Roblard, undergraduate engineer at the University of Victoria, and I would like to pass a motion to vote on this motion now.
Okay. So there's been a request for us to go to the vote. So the way this works is, and don't worry, I'm not looking for seconds on this. I'm going to test the House. Okay. And so I'm going to put forward a poll. And it's, if you want to go to a vote, you'll vote yes. Go straight to the vote. You vote yes. If you don't and you want to keep debating, you'll vote no. So if this passes, then we'll have a vote on the entire motion. So this vote is just about if you want to vote on the motion. So just give me 1 second to type this out. Okay. So vote yes if you want to stop debate and go to the vote. Vote no if you want to keep debating. You have 1 minute. The 25 seconds. And I will note that the rules do say that Abdul gets to speak one more time before we actually do the vote. So we'll go to him, then we'll go to the vote. I'm sorry if I didn't clarify that. Okay. So 203 people voted, 184 in favor of ending the debate, and 19 opposed. So Abdul, you get your last speaking right, and then it's the vote.
Okay, thank you so much, James. I'm just gonna go quickly through a couple of the problems and give like a quick conclusion. I think a couple of these problems have kind of been addressed before, but I think repeating them is going to be good. Double majors. Double majors are always placed in one faculty or the other. They still have both degrees. They just are placed in one faculty. That's how UVic works. They'd be eligible to run for the faculty they're in. The Senate lack of positions and people being filled. The UVSS also kind of struggles with that. So I feel like this is kind of the kettle
Not quite
corn
normal.
pot.
We should have 23.
Sorry, make sure that other folks have their stuff on mute. There's somebody else with their microphone on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Senate lack of positions thing. The UVSS also had trouble filling positions this year, and as well has had at least 10 resignations in the past 2 years. There seems to be issues with student governance at UVic, and hopefully this seems to address aims to address them. Someone mentioned that of course the UVSS is going to have more social sciences students because they'd be the people more interested in something like this. That's kind of a bad argument in the way that the UVSS is supposed to be by students, for students, all of them. Having an organization filled with one type of student or students who have one certain experience of campus is not going to help the UVSS achieve its goals in any way. The unknown consequences argument has been debunked, but I'm going to say it again. Passing something like this might have unknown consequences, but we see the path that UVSS is going down right now, and it's not a good one. There's the governance review call for proposals that has come up recently. I believe it was this Monday's board meeting. I think this is going to cost a lot, and it's going to definitely something we need, but I don't think it's mutually exclusive with my proposal. And I think it was implemented way too late for it to have any bearing on this motion. For department reps and having people relate more to the department than their faculty, I'd be happy to sit down with the UVSS board to discuss possible ways we can do something like that. I wanted to keep the board of directors not like 50 people large, but there are definitely ways to have an oversight council on the board of directors that could have people from every department, and it would be very cool to have something like that at UVic. And then the money problem, which was secure storage and also the paying people to look over policy. I think secure storage, that is an expense that we would have to consider. That is true. But the paying people to look at policy, that's something we already do. That's why we have the policy development committee. That's why we have the director of university relations and outreach. That's why we have the board of directors, for them to govern, and that's kind of the job that we're paying the board of directors to do anyways. I don't see that as a problem as well. In conclusion, I think this is something we definitely need. I think there are so many universities out there. I like sent out a message two days ago to get responses about the number of universities that do have faculty representation. I got 0 that responded back that said they didn't, and I think I got around 15 or 20 over Canada that all said that they do, and they are smaller universities, larger universities, and universities of similar sizes. Even the University of Manitoba reached out and said they had the opposite happen, where they wanted to move away from faculty directors about a year ago. And then that vote failed because they realized it's not a great idea to not have faculty representation. I think more representation is good, and I think this motion serves to do that. Thank you so much for participating in this motion, and I'm excited to see what the UVSS is like in a year from now. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go to the vote. I will remind folks that this is a special resolution because it amends the bylaws. And that means it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. So I'll launch the poll. So if you're in favor of this motion, state you're in favor. If you're opposed, you're opposed. You have 1 minute. Another 25 seconds. While you're still voting, I will remind folks that there are other resolutions. There's at least one other special resolution on the agenda, so folks can stick around for that, and the rest of the agenda, that'd be really great. I know there are more prizes coming up as well. So I'm going to end the poll. I'll show you the results. So there are 210 people that voted, 185 voted in favor, 25 opposed, 88% in favor, so that does pass. Okay. Thank you, folks, for getting through that with us. We're going to move on to motion number 3 now. It's been moved. Is there? Oh, sorry, prize time. I lied.
Sorry, James. I
Okay.
had prizes beforehand, and also I got a request from a student for a coffee break. That student, if you're still out there, would you like to move a formal motion on a coffee break? That would be the time. Okay, seeing none. Yes. Oh, yes. See, sorry, just in that. I do see 2 people, 3 people. Okay. For the minutes, may we please take Dominique Charlebois for a mover and a seconder from Rowan H. Froze to move, let's say 5 minutes, if that sounds okay. Just to get a quick bio break and then come back and we can do prizes and keep going. Yes.
Okay, just 1 second, and I'll spin up the poll.
Thanks, James.
30 more seconds. Okay, 162 people voted, 98 in favor, 64 opposed. So that means we will take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 5:30. So 5:30, we'll start back up. Please don't go anywhere. There are more prizes and there are more motions. On mute. It is 5:30, so that is the end of our break. So I'm going to bring folks back. This is a moment just for reminders, folks, that we are expecting folks to use best decorum in these meetings, and that is included in messages that get sent anywhere. So our next thing up, I believe, is prizes. So we'll just wait a moment here and we'll get those fired up.
Yeah, exactly. We have a prize for $2 Tootie gift card. Steph, may you please run the random prize selection generator thing? Okay, Nicholas Engpen, can you please let us know if you are still at this meeting? You've won a $50 gift card to get food from a delivery company that's local. Nick, we need your email. A few more seconds, just waiting for Nicholas. If not, we do need to move on to another person. I don't want you to miss out. Nicholas, please. Okay, sorry, I'm calling it. Steph, may you please choose another person? Okay, Carmen Hawkins, are you here? Carmen, yay, you're here. Okay, great. I'll grab your email and we can move on to the second part of the meeting. Thank you, Carmen. Okay, James, back to you.
Okay, we are on to motion number 3, which has been moved. I'll ask for a seconder, and like before, I'll read out the changes to the bylaws. So is there a seconder? Either put up your hand or write second in the chat to me. I may have frozen again. It's very possible. There we go. Deborah Berman, you are a seconder. Great. So this motion reads, be it resolved, the bylaws be amended as follows. 12.6, salary and honoraria for non-lead directors. A, non-lead directors, and it adds in, except the Director of International Relations shall be given honoraria for services rendered during the time in office. B, honoraria paid to non-lead directors, and it adds in, except for the Director of International Student Relations. It continues, shall be $50 per month. And C, it strikes out the word fulfilling and it adds in, except the Director of International Student Relations shall fulfill. I'm just going to talk about the changes instead of reading out everything. Under D, we see an amendment after non-lead directors, again, inserting the words except the Director of International Student Relations. And then we have a new section E, the Director of International Student Relations shall be paid for services rendered during the term in office. The salary and benefits paid to the Director of Student Relations shall be established at the rate equivalent to other lead directors and increased by 1% annually. And 2, the Director of International Student Relations is required to work a minimum of 15 paid hours and may work up to 20 paid hours a week. This is entitled to paid leave and sick time as per board of directors policy. Be it further resolved, this change comes into effect on May 1st, 2023. And now, before I go too far, Josh, I know that you had sent me a message about a clerical error. Did you want to raise that now?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah, sorry for jumping the gun earlier, but for motion 3, section 12.6, under the E and then under the I, it's just a simple typo. It's missing the word international, and I think it says like student representative and is just missing the word international. So.
Okay. So does anybody object to that change, putting that word back in? So under EI, going to be adding in international student relations. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody object. So we'll consider that change made as per your mover's privilege. So then I'll pass it over to you to go ahead and speak.
So, thanks so much, James, and thanks everybody for being here. My name is Josh. I'm a second-year psychology and environmental science student here, and I'm the current director of international student relations on the board. And this motion here that we will be voting on is to give the next director of international student relations a paid salary, making international student relations a part-time lead director of the UVSS, so to satisfy the allowed work hours of a study visa. This is important because the job operates and has the workload of the other 5 leads, but does not receive proper compensation. Whereas international students at the University of Victoria, approximately 17% of roughly 21,500 students, which is a huge body of students, face a great deal of challenges and predictabilities and barriers while traveling to a different country in pursuit of an undergraduate education and or a better life. The international student body should have a bold office of representation that stands in the same light and receives the same compensation as the UVSS's other lead directors, as the Director of International Student Relations is tasked with very similar responsibilities as the other 5 lead directors, such as creating and running their own portfolio from scratch, chairing the International Student Relations Committee, and sitting on other important committees. They're UVic, working in conjunction with lead directors, advocacy groups, the International Center for Students, which was previously the International Student Services, along with university admin, along with being fully engaged and immersed in the international student body while creating and executing their own events. All past directors of ISR have been compensated only $50 honorarium per month for all this work, while other lead directors are paid $18.50 an hour. Part of my platform assuming this position has been to further develop the ISR department of the UVSS so that the international student body has a clear, sturdy, and more distinguished office of representation so that each international student can feel heard, supported, and that their struggles and lack of representation are fully acknowledged and that they're being supported in the public eye by their student union. I urge a vote in favor of this motion so that your next representative can be correctly compensated for their work, as this work is above a volunteer position and functions as a full part-time job, and their work for supporting the international student body. And to clarify, this motion is of no benefit to me, but to the Office of International Student Relations, along with all future international students stepping into this job. This motion also does not increase student fees and is of no expense to our student body, but simply is supplied from within the student society. So based on my motivation here, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the SAGM. And I hope that you vote for this so that we can better support international students and that this office can be better supported and seen.
Great, thank you. If you would like to speak to this resolution, please put an X in the chat to me. I've got 2 people on the speakers list. Next up is Abdul.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to begin my little discussion by declaring a couple of things. First, when I started my time here at UVic, I was an international student, and I have only recently not become a domestic student. And so now I am an international student, and I do understand how awful it is being an international student at UVic, and appreciate the work that the ISR does to, attempt to help that. I also want to declare that I am also the person who wrote this motion, and I do have a lot of the understanding of the ins and outs of it. And I am here mainly to ask questions. I don't have a particular leaning towards yes or no for reasons I'm going to talk about in a second. And my third one is I very much do think everyone should be paid for the work that they put in. And I understand that the directors of international student relations do put in a lot more time and effort than they are adequately compensated for. So those are the little things I wanted to ask first about the finances of it. We heard a lot during this meeting that the UVSS is going to be struggling with money to pay for changes, to pay for things. Where exactly is the money coming out of the operating budget? What is going to be cut specifically, and how will we kind of move money around to make this possible? And secondly, would adding this on to the operating budget then mean later down the line, the UVSS is going to have to ask for an increase in how much is being paid to kind of offset the amount of money we might be, or the amount of services we might be losing out by adding another paid position? So those are my two questions to the board. Thank you very much.
So the two questions are what's cut and what was the other one?
What is cut, and will we ask for more money later down the line to bring back some of the services we cut?
Okay. I just want to, I'll let somebody from the board go, but I do want to note that this doesn't come into effect until 2023. So it's very unlikely that the same people answering questions would be the ones that would actually have to make the decision. But is somebody from the board willing to try to answer?
I can answer that if that's okay.
Please do. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so I formulated a part of the funding coming for this, and you can be sure that this will require no additional charge to students either now or further down the road. Now, where is this money coming from? This money does not currently exist within the structure of the UVSS, but it exists within the future remuneration that we get from the university. So I am right now working on a responsible investment policy, meaning this policy, if instituted, UVSS will take a little bit of what we have, put it towards a investment that satisfies the board's values and the UVSS values and the board's criteria, and the interest that we get from that will go into supporting this position, meaning it works more as an endowment. However, that it's not specifically for this position, but for a longer term financial stability of the UVSS without increasing student fee. So it becomes a catch-all for any sort of additional fee that we do. And that's where this additional funding is coming from.
Okay. You're actually back up on the speakers list next if you want to go ahead, Dib.
So thank you all for coming and participating in this debate. I used to be the previous Director of International Relations and have only moved up to Finance and Operations this year. So I want to share a little bit about my experience working as the Director for International Student Relations last year. We are paid same as a DAO, meaning currently, so meaning any amount of work that we do by contract, we are obligated to put in 2 hours work minimum. And that's in addition to, that's separate from any kind of committees or any other board function that we carry out. Now, to be fair, most board members do not meet this requirement because they always far exceed the number of hours required. For ISR, the case is a little different. I have seen this year, the person who was there before me and Josh right now, the average hours that goes into just maintaining this position, not even talking about addition or improvement, is at least 20 to 25 hours a week. If you want to do a good job, it can go up to 35 hours a week. Putting that much time and effort because you're running an entire portfolio on its own is taxing, and it's not feasible right now. if you can actually go back and check my board reports and the person before me, and those hours are consistent and nowhere near reducing or coming to an end. So we have seen a lot more increase in demand for ISR and the director of ISR to be in different committees. For example, I used to serve in a myriad of UVSS committees and then some UVIC committees as well, where I was required as the Director of International Student Relations, representing all international students to be on board. For example, something as simple as opt-out, fees opt-out committees, to other Senate committees where international students barely make an appearance, if ever. And those tasks take up a lot of time. So having someone paid to do this position, meaning they will not have to take up 3 jobs that I had to take up myself to do that position and feed myself and pay for all my bills. So that means the person coming in next year will be much more better equipped to deal with a lot of issues that international students face, as well as communicate effectively with the UVic administration. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anybody else on the speakers list, I don't believe. So Annie, you sent me a message. Did you want to ask that question? Annie's asked a question to you, Dip. Can I ask what will fund that investment account?
Sorry, if you could repeat the question.
The question is, can I ask what will fund that investment account?
It will come back to the general operating fund, meaning it will fund anything and everything at the UVSS, not just ISR. For example, if the board in future decides to increase that investment, the return we get from it can go into supplementing clubs, can go into supplementing course unions, can go into supplementing events, advocacy, anything. And it's just a possibility that we're opening up. I do also want to note that most student unions do earn a lot of money this way, and it is almost required because keeping your money in the bank, at least according to my analysis, is the only sure way of losing it, and having some kind of investment grow over time, meaning that our financial future at the UVSS will be secured to fund student advocacy needs.
Okay, I've got one more speaker from Sam Morrow.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I don't want to come off as accusatory or aggressive or anything with this. This is just like sort of a genuine question that I have. Just now, having an investment portfolio with UVSS does bring up some concerns with possible conflict of interest in investment and any sort of financial issues with that. So I was just wondering what kind of systems are in place to prevent any sort of, conflict of interest, possible embezzlement or anything like that in this investment portfolio. Again, I'm not trying to be accusatory or anything. I just want to ask a genuine question about what the policy is or will be.
Okay, we are getting down a bit of a rabbit hole, so I'll let the question be answered, but this is going to be the last part of this line of questioning, so we can get back to the motion.
Of course, so we already have a very strong conflict of interest policy, where any of us directors, for example, if it benefits us directly, are not allowed to even vote or even be in the room when that motion is being voted or discussed on. However, as I'm writing the policy right now, I am looking at different student unions who have these policies in place. I'm looking at the UN principle of responsible investment to incorporate those values into our framework, as well as a lot of other things which will be voted on and ratified before that takes place, before it actually we invest any money.
Okay. So I have no other speakers on the speaking list. So we will go to a vote. I'll pull up the poll here. So this motion is pretty straightforward. So if you're in favor, vote in favor. If you're opposed, vote opposed. You have 1 minute. Again, this is a special resolution and requires 2/3 to pass. Point of orders can be called while I'm in the middle of a vote, but before I announce results, I'll let you ask your point of order. So yeah, I see that there are a couple points of order in the chat. And I think it's because I did mess up and I didn't give Josh the opportunity to do a final motivation. So I apologize. I will let Josh do that. Does that resolve the points of order that were raised?
For me, yes.
Okay, Josh, go ahead.
I don't have too much to add besides just seconding some of Dip's answers. Us having been in the same room working out further policy to prevent any conflict of interest decisions made by future board members. But yeah, this motion is just to further develop the ISR department and make sure that the UVSS does a great job of representing international students. So thank you for being here again.
All right, and thank you to the folks who corrected me. I appreciate that. We'll try this again. We have 1 minute. Same vote. Last 15 seconds. Okay. So that motion had 130 people vote, 118 voted in favor and 12 voted opposed, 91% in favor. So that does pass. Okay. Thanks, folks, for going through what we have. We still have the board reports, question period, and then any announcements on the agenda. So at this point, I will ask if there are any members of the board of directors who would like to give a report.
Thank you. Thanks, James. One sec. I think our
sorry,
slides are
did it
messed
again.
up. Can we do a prize time? We have AirPods. We have AirPods. I think wait. I'm pretty sure the AirPods have already gone out. It should be the iPad. Apologies for that. The iPad hasn't been allocated yet. Yeah. Steph, may you help me choose a winner, please? Thank you all for sticking through this meeting. will be done fairly soon, but just need to wrap it up with some board reports. Okay, Lassa Johnson. Lassa, are you here? Please let us know. Okay. Lassa, I'm being told that you are here, but I'm just not seeing you. So can you just please send me your email in a private message and we'll connect. Thank you. Okay. Board reports. We're gonna change actually the order if that's okay. Just because I have a director that needs to leave ASAP. So Dip, would you like to take it away?
Yes, sorry everyone, I just have to leave a little bit early, so I'm gonna give my report first. So my name is Dib. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations for the UVSS, which means my job sometimes does come out as boring and droning on to a lot of people. So I'm gonna try and keep it as fun as possible, but still give you the real meat of what I'm trying to do. So what finance and operations does is it holds a few different kind of areas in my portfolio. A finance is, as says, my role is to maintain the finance and budgeting of the student union. I'm also responsible, or overarchingly responsible, for the operations of SUB and the UVSS as a whole. I also deal with personnel issues within the UVSS and staff structure, as well as the overall administration of the organization. So those are kind of the four kind of separate but different things that I oversee on a day-to-day basis. For example, I have both unionized and non-unionized staff as well as right now I'm chairing as the interim chair of the board. So a lot of things on my plate. A few things that I want to say that we have been successfully able to accomplish this year is I'm a big proponent, and one of my major promises was to bring the UVSS up to code on sustainability and the carbon neutrality pact that we had done some time ago. So right now, EcoFood as a separate committee, a standing committee of the board, is established, and we have already implemented a Say No to Go campaign, which encourages people to bring in reusable container and not use the paper to goes. We have also committed on behalf of the UVSS board to adhere to a 2040 goal by which the SUB and SUB operations need to be true carbon neutral, meaning in terms of carbon exchange, the amount of carbon we put out has to somehow be taken back. So carbon neutrality. I've also worked really hard on diversifying the revenue stream of the UVSS. Still, that is kind of an ongoing project, but you may see a few different things like the charging bank or the new books that are coming to subtext as an option. We do have a lot of food services in the building, and that is by design because as students, we have a major concern is food and nutrition. So the SUB provides a more subsidized rate of food for all students. However, during the pandemic, that has been really low because people have not been on campus. So a major focus for me was to see and diversify. So we're focusing on different areas right now and how we can make SUB work for a lot of different people with different needs. I've also held an initial discussion with Van City, who's our banker, for the responsible investment policy that I had mentioned before. And that goes towards, as I said, funding a lot of different activities in the SUB. So that has been right now the major thing that I'm working on. I'm also working on maintaining or improving the HR system that we have to make operations a little bit easier, as well as something that we have not announced yet, but and right now, because of COVID restrictions, it's a little bit iffy whether we can do it or not. But I have heard a lot of students and a lot of feedback about the UVSS Health and Dental Plan. And right now there's a survey going on, so please respond to that, as well as we are planning to host.
Sorry, before you go too much further, I just want to interrupt. There was a question that came up. Are there supposed to be slides with this?
No, it's we just
Okay,
have.
sorry.
Pictures.
Apologies for interrupting. Go ahead.
No worries. Thanks, James.
No, just last thing. So we may see an open house about the health and dental plan pretty soon. That's for my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tip. Okay, so next we'll do outreach, and it'll be Deb.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here for this. It's really exciting to see so much engagement. So I'm a director at large under the member outreach profile. That's not the word. So the director of outreach and university relations is the society spokesperson. They liaise with the university administration, different levels of government, and with the student representatives to the Senate and the Board of Governors to advance student interests. The director of outreach and university relations regularly chairs the board of directors meetings, which must occur at least twice a month. So some of the exciting things that we've done in the past year, starting in the summer with our community immunity campaign. So we held a town hall with 19 to 0, and we also advocated for free flu shots for students. We also created a wellness journal with the UVSS staff called the UVSS Book of You, and this was targeted at promoting mental health, self-exploration, and creativity. We also did residents move-in and campus kickoff, which was super exciting to be back on campus this year. And this was our biggest event of the year, and it went on for a full week. Some of the smaller things that we did, so we filmed a new sub video tour. We did classroom talks, and we updated our website about with frequently asked questions about health and dental insurance to make filling out your claims more accessible. What are we doing now? So we're encouraging everyone to fill out our annual survey, which is going to be going on until the middle of March. So please let us know your feedback, and we always want to listen and respond to students. Also, by filling it out, you'll be entered to win a pair of AirPods. We're also looking for suitable researchers and vendors for the UVSS governance review. And we are chairing the electoral committee. So nominations open on Monday for our upcoming election. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, next up is events. Kashal, would you have capacity to do it right now, or would you like a second?
Yeah, definitely. I can do it right now. I am Kashal.
Oh, Kashal, I'm not hearing you. Never mind. Sorry, it's just me. You're all good. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I am Kashal. I'm a director at large. And I work in the events portfolio. So the director of events is responsible for planning and coordinating all events for the UVSS. They assist the director of external relations with marketing and communication and act as the UVSS's representative on all matters relating to athletics, recreation, and on-campus housing. So some of the things that have been accomplished this term already include the in-person campus kickoff in September, which had the pancake breakfast and the movie in the park. There was a shuttle bus for the fall reading break, and there has been a monthly book club with 2 separate sessions each month, a BIPOC only session and an open group session. And we have books available at Subtext as well as the info booth for $5.25. And there are some available at NSU and SOC as well, which are free. And the next sessions for those, for the BIPOC session, it'll be March 1st, and the open session is March 3rd. So that has been ongoing. The Imaginist poster sale happened on October 14th to 15th. There was Trick or Treat in the Sub on October 29th.
And currently what we're working on is some collaborative events with advocacy groups. JAM is putting on a drag event at CCG, which I believe will be in April, and a Sexpo with vendors and workshops in the sub on March 16th. And also UVic Pride is putting on 2 separate events coming in March as well. In early April, there will be Puppy Playtime, which is a returning event. And in partnership with the Food Bank, there will be another international food fair in mid to late March. And that's all from me.
Sweet, thank you. Next up is campaigns and community relations. Emma Jane, would you be ready to go now?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here. My name is Emma Jane, and I'm the External Relations Officer. So I'm a staff member that works really closely with the Campaigns and Community Relations portfolio. So the Director of Campaigns and Community Relations oversees all aspects of the UVSS communication and advocacy, and they coordinate with all levels of government to advocate for student issues. So this board term, we've mainly focused on 7 main campaigns, but then also in the fall, we did a Get Out the Vote campaign for the federal election. So our 7 main campaigns are Divest UVic, Make Transit Work, Textbook Broke, We Rethink Mental Health, Let's Get Consensual, Rent with Rights, and Safer Use. So I'm going to start with talking about Divest UVic because we've done a lot of work on this semester. So we put a lot of student pressure towards divesting the rest, and we were pretty successful in that. The foundation has divested most of its holdings in fossil fuels, so that was a great win for us, and we're really excited about that. So going forward, with Divest, we're probably going to lean into more student-centered grassroots organizing to reimagine what this group can look like in the future. And we're also going to be pushing towards reinvestment demands in collaboration with other Divest campaigns in other universities. Next is our Rent with Rights campaign. So we have some really exciting developments with this. We raised awareness about the rising costs of housing that are affecting students through a lot of different campaigns on online and also in news articles. And yeah, that was really awesome. And then we also advocated towards Oak Bay to allow for secondary suites through an open letter campaign and a letter to the editor. And we've also most recently put out an FAQ page to keep students informed on how they can rent with rights. So that's on our Rent with Rights website on the UVSS website. And next is Make Transit Work. So basically the main thing we've been focusing on is trying to improve student representation in transit decision-making. So specifically, this year we got a seat on the Victoria Regional Transit Commission. It was our turn to have the seat. That usually alternates between UVic and Camosun. This time it was us. And so we continue to advocate for that seat to actually be able to vote on the Transit Commission. Right now it's not voting. That still remains the case, but we put a lot of effort into advocating for that. And also, we've most recently put together a student transit feedback form to hear students' concerns around the transit issues they're facing in the region. Next is Rethink Mental Health. We had 200 mental health care packages given to students with local products. We also had a successful wellness week, and we held many different mental health workshops. Next is the Safer Use campaign. We trained over 1,000 students on naloxone and harm reduction training. We also gave out distribution of free harm reduction supplies in the basement of the sub and through our food hamper program, which was great. Next is Let's Get Consensual campaign. So this campaign focuses on reducing sexualized violence on campus and trying to eliminate that as much as possible. And so we focused on our Sexualized Violence Awareness Week, and we also have been doing ongoing social media awareness programming for this. And then lastly is just our Get Out the Vote campaign. So we rose awareness around the federal election in the fall by tabling at campus kickoff events. And we also teamed up with a youth-led campaign called Shake Up the Establishment to promote voting and also to emphasize that climate justice is not a partisan issue. So those are some of the things we've been working on in campaigns and community relations. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Almost last but not quite least is my portfolio, student affairs. I'll be super duper brief. So my portfolio looks at helping support student community on campus. So I basically help clubs and course unions and all our advocacy and affiliated groups. For example, we allocate funding to all our clubs and course unions at a meeting each semester. I also have to make sure that everyone has sexualized violence training. And so this year we updated that so that it's a yearly requirement, and we're looking at reviewing what courses are improved just to ensure that there's high quality in that training in the future. I'm also looking at making funding more easily available to course unions. For example, just like expanding definitions of what can be projects that we give out funding for. Ratified over 200 clubs, 50 course unions, distributing a total of over $40,000 in student fees. Also cleaned up lockers, which doesn't sound like a very big or glamorous accomplishment, but it was long overdue. We also hosted clubs and course union days, which you can see on the screen. It was the very first time that we had it on the quad, and we had it simultaneously on the quad and outside the sub, and it was a really big hit. We had more, like too many participants, we couldn't count them all. And then when COVID hit a little bit more in January, we shifted online and had it on Discord and on Instagram. We doubled the number of people that were engaged, which is like users at our virtual clubs and course union day. So that was really good to see. We also gave out over $15,000 to advocate groups and counting, which is likely distributing more. I'm working on strengthening our harassment policy and making sure that clubs and course unions have like a better way of getting insurance. It's just streamlined. Yeah, that's it for me. Last is international relations. Josh.
Thanks a bunch, Marielle. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight and passing that third motion. That has been an intention of mine since day one of this position. So Director of International Student Relations is the primary liaison between the international student body and the UVSS. And it's a pretty young department, unfortunately, but it's grown very fast in just seven terms. I'm the 7th Director of International Student Relations since 2015. So this term has been a lot of internal work and a lot of external work. Internal meaning solidifying this department further, making sure that it is defined more within the UVSS and is a paid position like the other lead directors, and making it more visible to the student body. Along with currently me and the wonderful director at large that I work with, Shilpa Parveen. We're working on a manual for this position, which all of the other lead directors have, but ISR has not up till this point. So it's been a lot of internal work, really solidifying this department even further. When it comes to external work, the 4 values that my Dial and I have really wanted to emphasize are representation for international students, financial support, community support, and mental health support. So we have done a lot of work with International Center for Students and the global community during COVID, and assisting international students just through these difficult times, traveling during the pandemic, potentially being unable to travel during the pandemic, and how they're going to access courses and how international students are going to find housing during the housing crisis if they get the opportunity to travel to Canada. And so all of these questions and concerns for international students constantly fluctuating. That has been a big role of this director position, working in conjunction with the University of Victoria and the ICS. Along with that, I've been sitting on the Peer Support Center Committee and looking at ways that we can better mental health services online and in person for international students, along with working with the Graduate Student Society, which we, over a long period of time, were collecting signatures and constructed a in-depth petition regarding the reduction of the international MSP fee, which doubled while the fee for domestic students was completely struck. And so the Graduate Student Society, along with ISR within the UVSS, has been working on that petition and the Legislative Assembly on how we can lower that fee, as there have been so many more barriers for international students. One of those barriers as well being the constantly increasing international students' tuition, which as the domestic tuition has a 2% hike cap, there is no hike cap for international students. So ISR has been doing a lot of outreach with students, along with other student unions, UBC, UNBC, and CMOSUN, and discussing lobbying on a provincial level, as long as lobbying on a singular university level, which on the university level, we have taken a similar letter and conversational approach with the university, as long as collecting testaments from a number of international students in numerous departments. And so we are actively continuing that conversation with UVic with the asks of this next year freezing international student tuition hikes, and then the following 2 years to place a 2% cap. And we can really sit down and talk about reworking UVic's funds so that international students are not simply at financial expense, as well as we are currently in talks with UVic on how to better word the emergency international student bursaries, as this bursary is for international students in emergency financial situations, but that is not all inconclusive, and UVic has a very specific way of deeming what is an emergency situation. So it has to be completely unpredictable. So if it has to do with financial struggles, that is not deemed unforeseen. For example, tuition or being cut off from family. And so while some of these situations are very much emergencies and outside of students' controls, they need to be seen as emergencies to the university so that this bursary can be used to its best advantage. And these are just some examples that the ISR department has been working on this year and what it is about. And so exiting office this year, the goal is to continue solidifying the office and passing it on to the next Director of International Student Relations so they can carry on lifting up voices for international students.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, Perez time. Sorry, but I am lost here. We also have fantastic directors at large. Just a quick shout out to Deb, Nigel, Rowan, Kit, Haley, Kritika, Shilpa, Dhruvi, Sid, Kishal, Delisha, Effie, Kai, Noella, and our newest member, Ashley. They've all been doing fantastic work advocating on behalf of students in many UVic committees, talking to politicians, just doing a ton of work. Okay, about prizes. I never heard back from Lassa. Last call, if you're there. If not, I'm gonna have to draw another name. Okay, Steph, may you help me find another prize winner for that iPad? While we wait, I can tell you that we have, for example, a sustainability committee that just opened up. It's called EcoFoot. They're doing really cool things. Please contact Nigel if you'd like to get involved. Okay, prize winner for the iPad is Alyssa Taylor. Alyssa, are you here? I don't think Alyssa is here. I'm not seeing them on the participants list. Steph, may you help me pick another name? Okay, Zoe Hallman. Zoe, are you here? Also not seeing them on the participants list. Folks, this is like still till the end. You could have won an iPad. Okay, last call for Zoe Hallman. Okay, Steph, maybe get another name. Okay, Brian Kwan, are you here? They're also not on the participants list, Steph. Okay, while we wait, Nigel, do you want to pop on and tell us about EcoFoot?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just quickly plug EcoFoot. So basically, what this is it's a working group that was formalized in November. And basically what EcoFoot's role is to make recommendations to the UVSS Board of Directors on basically everything that pertains to environmental sustainability of UVSS operations and the student union building. So like Dip mentioned earlier, one of the things we did in the fall is we brought in a surcharge on to-go containers at food vendors like the Grill. And that's just one example of like the policies that we work to develop. The other sort of side of EcoFoot is it's meant to be sort of a forum for members to come and participate in discussions and help the UVSS develop its environmental sustainability policy. So if anyone is interested in getting involved, you can absolutely reach out to me. And Mario, I'll get you to put my email in the chat. It's just nbiznar@uvic.ca.
Okay, I'll do that in a sec.
Awesome.
Katrina, sorry, Nigel, I will totally put your email. I'm just seeing that Katrina got the iPad. Katrina, may you please, I'm seeing that you're here. Can you please also send me your email? But I am seeing that Katrina's here. So I think that concludes the meeting.
So we do have the question period next, right?
Yeah, sorry. Question period. Please go forth. We're here to answer any and all questions.
So just so folks are aware, question period on the agenda it's for 30 minutes max. Somebody did note we are below quorum, but your bylaws allow you to do question period. Questions need to be limited to the activities of the board. I request that folks make these questions as respectful as possible. I have one person who's requested to speak. If you'd like to ask a question, please put an X in the chat and I'll call on you. And if I've pronounced your name wrong, please do correct me.
Oh, no worries. That was perfectly fine pronunciation. Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to confirm that you said the questions were about the recent activities of the board.
Yeah, so your bylaws state that the members' questions on the activities of the board of directors. So that could fall within the portfolios of the board of directors, things they've done throughout the year, things you heard in the report. All of those would be within the scope of this.
Would it be within the scope to ask about a previous motion the board had made decision on? And yeah, I guess that's it. What a previous motion the board had made decision on during a director's board meeting.
Yep, that would be in order. Activities of the board.
Okay, then I would just like some formal clarification on the makerspace motion that was brought up at the board meeting. I understand that we told that the money wasn't available and the money was repurposed due to a clause in one of the quorum votes saying that if it didn't pass quorum, it would be repurposed elsewhere. I wasn't sure if that was a rumor or not. I just want some formal clarification on what happened to that makerspace motion and why it didn't pass.
So is there somebody from the board who'd be willing to answer that?
Yeah, I can start. It's a big complex question, so I can start, but I'm sure that other people have more better insight. So bear with me. So the motion that you're referring to was to create basically like a new lab to put together like equipment and things to be able to build like student projects. The problem with that motion is that it was actually talking about money that's called the PERG fees. So in order to set up that makerspace, it was allocating money from the PERG fee. The PERG fees is a long story, but I'll try to make it brief. Basically, we had a public interest research group at the sub a few years back. They decided to leave and sever the relationship with the UVSS, but we were still collecting money to fund that working group. The purpose of the fee was to get public interest research and data so that we could better advocate for students. Once that relationship was severed, we decided to try and find replacements. I think we did that for about 2 or 3 years. We could not find replacement. And so we were left with the position of continually still collecting that student fee. Sorry, maybe I didn't quite, okay. Okay, sorry, there's just so much backstory to this. Okay, so basically because that we were still collecting fees, but we didn't have that service going on, we had to figure out a way of stopping that collection of fees. One of the ways that we did that is running a referenda, and yes, enough, it was worded so that whether it passed or if it passed but didn't meet quorum, then we were going to reallocate the funds. If students had voted no, then we wouldn't have been able to. That is exactly what happened. We didn't reach quorum, so we reallocated those funds, and we were really careful to maintain the spirit of public interest research. So we put half of it towards a BIPOC scholarship that's being given out by UVic. I think the first term it will be distributed is within the next year or so. Okay, sorry, that's such a long explanation. That's all the backstory. So the problem with the makerspace motion was that it would reallocate the fees that had already been distributed through the PERG fees that had been held in question after the public interest research group had left the sub. And so the problem with the makerspace motion was that it was basically a referenda question, but it just wasn't submitted in the proper place. So because it would require money to be collected from students, which in that fee wasn't in question, it would effectively put this fee back on students. And so great initiative, it just wasn't quite the proper place to do it as an SAGM motion, because all money questions have to go through a referendum. Sorry, that was such a long explanation. Please let me know if I was unclear at all.
Thank you for the answer.
Sorry, go ahead, Shelby.
Hi. I was just wondering where I could find, there was like a feedback survey relating to the student care, like a healthcare coverage that was mentioned earlier, and I was just wondering where I could find that.
Steph, would you happen to have that link? Great. So there's the UVSS feedback link on in the chat. I think it should be that. If you have any problems at all, Shelby, please send me an email. I'll try and figure out something for you, okay?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I see that's like the main survey that's been on the UVSS website, but I think there was like specific other feedback surveys being mentioned that were like unrelated, like
Okay.
for student care and maybe like not course unions, but something else.
Okay. So there is a survey about student care, but I think that that's actually been being handed out by the company's student care themselves, not by us. So that might be the difference. I will see if I can dig that up for you. Anyways,
Okay. Yeah, thank
course,
you.
for a course union survey, I'm actually the person in charge of course unions, and I'm not handing out a survey right now. But we are collecting lots of just general feedback through the UVSS survey. I'm not quite sure if that's the one that you mean, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but thank you.
Samuel.
Thanks, James. I know that it's getting late and everyone wants to go home. I just had a quick question about who I should be talking to. So I've been trying to organize a Senate Student Caucus, and I know that, well, I was in contact with Marin about it before she resigned. And I think it was Deborah that did a presentation on the outreach portfolio. I'm just wondering who I should be talking to about this at the UVSS. And secondly, just part of that, how do I get like DAL emails if I want to talk to DALs?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, sorry. Just so everyone knows, we had 3 members a step away, and so it's just me and Dip trying to gauge all the emails. So apologies if we missed it. Sam, I think I've already asked you to shoot me an email about that so that we could get started. I also took a little break because it was a whole lot of work to just run this by myself. But yeah, let's definitely work on that. And then the other question was how to get DAL emails. I think you can, they should be on their website. If not, I can go check. You can also just shoot me an email and I can see if I can track those emails down for you. Sorry, it just feels funny to put emails randomly here in a chat without their consent. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure, thank you. I just, I didn't find them on the website when I looked, but that doesn't mean they aren't there.
Okay, I'll double check and I'll ask our DAOs if they feel comfortable with that too.
Okay, Abdul.
Hi, I am going to, I have a follow-up question about the PERG fee specifically. Since the method the society used to reallocate the funds breaks the University Act, how is the UVSS board going to rectify the situation?
Yeah, Abdul, we've had a number of discussions about this. I'm not quite sure if this is the best place to continue that discussion. We don't believe that we've broken any society's act. We made the best decision we could at the time, and we're in it right now. So if you have specific questions, we can chat about them. But
So I don't have anybody else on the speakers list. So if you'd like to ask a question, put an X in the chat, please. Let's give folks another moment. If you'd like to ask a question, send me an X. Otherwise, we can end it early after only 4 hours.
Woohoo.
Okay. I've gotten 2 more. So Samuel and then Shelby.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a quick question on the upcoming election, if that's allowed.
Yeah.
I was wondering if, as nominations come in, will they be like, will we know how many nominations there are? Just concerned that we'll get into a position where, like, we don't know who's been nominated until it's too late, and there won't be enough nominations like last year.
That's a really good question, and I can't answer that. I'm not part of the electoral office. I think that'd be a ruling that they would have to make. I can shoot them a quick email and ask, but I wouldn't have an answer for you right now. What happened last time is that we extended the nomination period if Dallas didn't, if there weren't enough people running. And so I'm guessing that a similar situation would happen again, but it's completely up to the electoral office who are independent.
Thank you. It's just been very difficult to get a hold of the electoral office. It took them a month to get back to my last email. So if you could maybe ping them about it, that would be great. They might be more inclined to respond to you.
I don't think it's that at all. I think it's that they were just recently staffed. The electoral office is a seat that's vacant when there isn't an election period. So that's probably why.
And Shelby.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, I was just wondering if the motion 2 that was voted on today would apply to this coming election or not until the next election?
I'll answer that one. The last clause of that motion states that it comes into effect in 2023. So it won't be this election, but it'll be the following one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I have no more questions on the list. Give folks a final opportunity if they wish to ask a question. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So let's move on to any announcements from the board that we need to be aware of. Otherwise, we are at the end of our agenda. And so now is the time for adjournment. So thank you everybody for being here. This has been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for coming. Have a good night.